Be going over present tense verb conjugations. Now it's first important to understand what exactly a conjugation is and what its purposes are. A conjugation is essentially where we take the verb of a sentence and we actually change it itself to reflect two things. The first is going to be who does the action, and the second is going to be when the action happens, also known as the verb tense. Now today we're just going to be focusing on the present tense verb conjugations. These are the most important and the most common in Spanish, and it's a good starting point. But what we really want to focus on today is how changing with each conjugation is going to change who exactly does the action. So first, let's learn how to do a conjugation. There's 3 steps. First, we're going to start with the infinitive. If you remember, an infinitive is essentially the most basic unconjugated form of a verb. So essentially, it's just the action itself. We don't know who's doing the action yet. We don't know when the action's happening. But it is just the action itself. And so, in Spanish, there's only 3 types of infinitives. There's going to be ARs, ERs, and IRs. And every single infinitive in all of Spanish will start with one of these 3. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to drop the ending. So that means that we're going to drop the AR, the ER, or the IR of the verb. And finally, what we're going to do is we're going to add our conjugation to demonstrate who is doing the action. So let's take a look at this in practice real quick. First, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the word hablar, to talk. Right now, we just have the action itself. We don't know who's doing it. We don't know when it's happening. It's just the action itself. However, what I can do is I can conjugate it to reflect that both it's happening in the present tense and that someone is doing the action. In this case, let's try to translate I talk. I talk. So, what we're always going to refer to is this right here. This is known as a conjugation chart. So you can see we got to yo goes to o, tú to as, ele, usted to a, so on and so forth. So basically, if we wanted to say I, it's yo in Spanish, but we're going to use this ending. So we're going to take hablar, we're going to pull off the AR, and then finally we're going to add the O. Hablo, I talk. Now what you can do as well is you can say yo hablo, but you don't need the O. And the reason why you don't need the O is because the I is already built in with the conjugation. If you just say hablo, that will always mean I talk. And so typically they actually tend to not include these subject pronouns because it's just easier to completely cut them out. However, for forms like él, ella, and usted, and ellos, ellas, and ustedes, where there's multiple subject pronouns, sometimes it's better to always include the pronoun to basically specify who exactly you're talking about. So hablo will be I talk. If we want to say you talk, hablas. He talks, él habla. Ella habla, she talks. Usted habla, you talk, but in a formal sense. Hablamos, we talk. Habláis, y'all talk. And finally, hablan could be they talk or could be you guys talk. Now, one thing to note as well is that you don't necessarily need to include it when it comes to these right here. You don't need to include the subject pronoun if you already know who's being talked about. But in this case, if we want to basically clarify who exactly is being talked about in a sentence, we can have the él, the ella, or the usted, or the ellos, ellas, and ustedes, to simply clarify who exactly is being referred to by the conjugation. Now, one more thing to note is the fact that this is just the AR chart. So you can see that when it's just the AR chart, these will only function for AR infinitives. If we go down here, you can see that ERs are going to have a completely different chart. So for example, if I were to take the word, let's say correr, to run, if I want to say you run, it wouldn't be corras, it would be corres. And finally, IRs are also going to have a different chart. Now, the good thing is that they're all very similar to each other. You can see that the ER chart is literally just the AR chart, but with all the A's replaced by E's. And the IR chart is pretty similar to the ER chart, but the nosotros is going to be imos and the vosotros is going to be is. So, now that we've gone over all the charts, let's take a look at some examples. We've got 3 here. You swim, they eat, and finally, we leave. If you want to do these on your own, I'll give you a second. Alright, let's start with this first one. We've got the word nadar. What we're going to do is we're going to take off the AR. Then we're going to go to the U form. So you can see the U form, tú, is going to be as. So in order to say you swim in Spanish, just going to be nadas. Now you can also include the tú if you want, tú nadas. But you don't need to because it's already built into the conjugation. Now next is going to be they eat. So first let's start with ellos. Now we're going to go to the they form. So take off the ER. Look for the ellos form. For ER is going to be en. So comen or ellos comen. And finally we leave. Start with our word salir. Take off the ending. Of course we could say nosotros in front of it as well if we wanted to. Now we're going to go up. You can see nosotros salimos. There you have it. There's some examples of conjugations and kind of just in general how conjugations work. Now one thing to note is that once again these are just the present tense conjugations. So if you want to talk in the past tense, it's going to be a whole new set of conjugations. If you want to talk in the future, if you want to talk in the conditional, there's a lot of different tenses in Spanish. But as far as present goes, these are going to be all the conjugations right here. It's going to start with oasa, amos, ais, an, er, osa, amos, es, and en. Finally, ir, osa, imos, is, and en. So, overall, conjugations are extremely important to know in Spanish, especially the present tense ones, because they tend to come up a lot, almost in every single sentence. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.